Good evening, everybody. This is Professor Ayorinde welcoming you to another Zoom session. The topic of today's session is hijacking Zoom for online lectures. Hijacking Zoom for online lectures. Whether you are a chemist, whether you teach biology, mathematics, physics, history, the social sciences, engineering, you could use the Zoom platform to provide online lectures to your students. But how do you do that? In order to do that effectively, you have to be able to combine Zoom with Microsoft Office 365 OneNote, by combining Zoom with Office 365 OneNote, you will be able to simulate your classroom experience. In essence, the OneNote will be acting as your whiteboard or your chalkboard, as though you are in your classroom. In this instance, since you are live online, your students will be able to see you, see everything you write on your OneNote, and they will be able to interact with you, ask questions, and you will be able to also ask your students questions. So this is simulating your classroom experience. But before we go into details on how we do this, for the benefit of those of you who may be using Zoom for the first time, let us take care of some housekeeping matters. Of course, for you to be able to use the Zoom with the OneNote, you will need a stylus, just like the one I'm holding in my hand right here. This stylus is about $5 US dollars or less. You also would need a laptop just like this that enables you to write on the screen. Of course, you will also need your Microsoft Office OneNote. Now, before we go further into the session, like I said, for those of you who are just joining us for the first time or using Zoom for the first time, when you enter the Zoom room, you will see the control panel at the bottom of your screen. And to the left-hand corner of that control panel, you will see the icon for the audio device. You want to check the setting for this to be sure your audio device is working properly. And next to the audio icon, to the right of the audio icon, you will see the video icon. You also want to check the video icon to make sure the settings are appropriate. Then moving further towards the center of the control panel, you will see a security icon. If you click on that, that give you a series of options. You choose which option that you desire for your session. And then to the right of the security icon, there is an icon that says Manage Participants. You want to click on that. That will enable you to see your students, and your students will also see you. Next to that participant icon, there is a chat icon that allows you to chat or send text message to your student, and your student could send text message to you. You click on that icon to open up the chat window. And next to the chat icon is the feature that I consider the most important feature in the Zoom platform, particularly with regard to giving lectures to students. This icon is a green rectangular icon, rectangular icon that says Share Screen. You click on that. Once you click on the Share Screen icon, that will take you to a window that gives you a series of options. You have the option of allowing the student to see everything on your laptop screen, or the option of seeing the Zoom whiteboard. I do not recommend choosing the Zoom whiteboard, because for the purpose of delivering lectures, it is not as interactive. It is good for giving web conference, which was the original purpose of the Zoom application in the first place. It also give you the option of choosing a specific application. In this case, we are going to choose the OneNote application. Keep in mind, in order for you to be able to choose the OneNote application, you must have the application open before you go to the Zoom room. Okay, so at this point, I am going to choose the OneNote application, and then I will share that with you. See, we are back to where we were. So at this point, I can proceed with my lecture as though I am in the classroom with my students, and the student will be able to ask me questions, and I will be able to ask the student questions. But since I am an organic chemist, I am going to use for this purpose, for this demonstration, an example of an organic chemical synthetic problem. Okay, so what do? I go to the next page. You see how easy, how seamless it is to go to a page on OneNote. So I say I want to give a synthetic scheme for Panadol. So we say synthesis see what I'm doing here, writing as though I'm in the classroom, synthesis of Panadol. In the US, Panadol is referred to as Tylenol. Of course, Tylenol or Panadol is a popular analgesic, in other words, a pain reliever. It's one of those drugs that you go to when you have a slight fever. I'm sure most of you have taken this before. So anyway, I have synthesis of Panadol. And I want to start the synthetic process with this molecule here. See what I am doing here, writing as though I am in the classroom. I know it does take about 1 hour or so to get used to writing on the computer screen using a stylus. But once you get used to it, it just becomes natural to you, just as though you are writing on the whiteboard in your classroom or on the chalkboard in your classroom. So we are going to start with this molecule here. This molecule is called P. The P stands for para. Amino phenol So we are going to react the p-aminophenol with this other molecule called acetic anhydride. This molecule is called acetic anhydride. Write that down. Acetic anhydride. See, at this point, I will encourage my students to follow my writing and write down the notes as though they are in the classroom, because based on my experience, when you teach online, you want to make sure the students are busy. In as much as you are writing, you tell them to also write the note down as though they are in the classroom, because if they don't, they very easily lose concentration, and you do not want that to happen. So encourage the student to write down notes just as though they are in the classroom, and of course to also ask you questions. And then you should also be asking the students questions regularly. Okay, so the p-aminophenol will react with acetic anhydride to give our final product, like I say, it takes a little practice to learn how to use the stylus to write on your computer screen. But once you get used to it, it becomes second nature, as though you are using the whiteboard in your classroom or the chalkboard in your classroom. Okay, so now this is our Tylenol or Panadol right here. Okay, now you could then go further with your explanation of the process to your students. What is actually happening here? We notice here one of the hydrogens attached to the nitrogen here, one of these hydrogen here that is attached to nitrogen. One of those hydrogen have been replaced by this group right here. And that group comes from here, from acetic anhydride right here. Okay, and that particular group we call acetyl group. Called acetyl group. So therefore, because of that, we call this process, we refer to this process of replacing one of the hydrogen that is attached to nitrogen in p-aminophenol. One of these hydrogen here, that process of replacing that with the acetyl group we refer to as acetylation. And of course, the student may ask you further questions as to that is pointing to the mechanism of this reaction. I do not want to get too technical at this point, since this is not a formal lecture, but just to indicate to you the simplicity of using the OneNote. You could simply go to the next page. Supposing the student asks you, Professor, how come? Say, Professor, how come only the nitrogen how come only the hydrogen on the nitrogen in the starting material how come only the hydrogen attached to this nitrogen is replaced by the acetyl group? Well, the answer to that is this nitrogen here is more nucleophilic, than this oxygen. In other words, the electron pair on nitrogen is more readily available to attack a positively charged center or an electrophilic center. In other words, the nitrogen is more nucleophilic than the oxygen, and as such, it readily attacks nitrogen readily attacks one of the electrophilic carbon in the acetic anhydride molecule. Now, the acetic anhydride molecule has two electrophilic carbon. This carbon here is electrophilic, and this carbon here is electrophilic. And what do we mean by that? We mean that those carbon, due to resonance, could develop a positive charge or character, be positively charged. And as such, they will be willing to attract a nucleophile, in other words, a species that contains electrons. So, because the nitrogen is more nucleophilic, what it does, it attacks this carbon, and this carbon-oxygen bond will break. So this part of the molecule will break away, thereby having the nitrogen attached to this carbon here to subsequently form the final product. So the point is here that nitrogen in this molecule is more nucleophilic. In other words, the pair of electrons available to nitrogen is more readily available to attack a positive center. So the point we make in all of this is that you could use a combination of the Zoom platform and Microsoft Office OneNote to deliver an effective lecture to your students that simulate the classroom experience. So at this point, let us come to the end of this presentation. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation as much as I've enjoyed giving it to you. And until we meet again, I say so long.